That I had a request not to read the bio as we begin, and it's for a purpose. Normally, as you begin a workshop or session of any sort, you get a chance to hear a little bit about the speaker and what they've done and where they've been and all of those things. I'm going to start a little bit differently. Instead of me telling you about me, I'm going to ask you to tell me something about me. Tell me something about me. The fact that I'm African American, have on a tie, and I'm wearing glasses are all easy answers. So stretch out a little bit more than that. Tell me something about me. Ma'am?
You framed it because you read me, she my name on it.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. Ma'am?
Your sister-in-law is named Davis.
I wonder how you knew that. Touche. I saw another hand over
We
here.
have a sense of humor.
A sense of humor?
Telling us back here we're going to get bullied for sitting back.
Oh, you thought I was joking? Touche, man.
I think you either have a breast cancer survivor or a breast cancer patient or someone who's had breast cancer in your family.
I'm not just saying pink is dashing. Well put. Yes,
It's a
sir.
strong man.
That's right.
I think you're stylish.
Now, my wife fixed out all my clothes. So I'm kidding. Let me tell you why I asked you what I did. There's something that's called the 7-Eleven rule. And the 7-Eleven rule says we form up to 11 impressions about people in the first 7 seconds of seeing them. And we all do it. If you don't think you do, wait till you're heading home this evening, you pull up to the light, someone pulls up next to you, taps their horn to try to get your attention to ask a question. You'll glance over in that car and in a split second decide, am I letting my window down to see what they want? Or am I praying that this light changes as quickly as possible? Not only do people come to impressions about you, but they like you or dislike you just that quickly. Unfortunately, in the workplace, that has a tendency to manifest in many ways. It can be dysfunctional. A new team member comes in. Before they've ever opened their mouth, we decide, do we like them or not? Are we going to get along with them or not? And a lot of times, we're assigning to them characteristics or attributes that remind us of that person. Someone that I like, they remind me of, I think we're going to get along. Someone I don't like, they remind me of, this person and I are not going to be able to work together. Those issues manifest in the way we treat each other, and it also manifests in this perspective on bullying. To give you a little of my background, I wear multiple hats. One of them, since the late 90s, I've been a director and diversity strategist at the University of Houston's International Institute for Diversity and Cross-Cultural Management, which is a mouthful to have to answer the phone with. But the Institute for Diversity is in the College of Business and not the School of Psychology or Sociology. Because this work, at the end of the day, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. This is not about social justice. It's about creating respectful and inclusive workplaces where people bring their A game to work every day. And the impact of what happens when that doesn't occur touches the organization in multiple ways. I will tell you in advance, I've got about 10 pounds of stuff to put in a 5-pound bag, only my dad used to say that just a little bit differently than that. Some of you know my dad as well. So I may sound like a 33 at 45 speed going through some of this, and I will admit, quick diversity comment, I said that in a workshop before where a CEO ran over and my time got cut in half. After the session, a young lady came up to me and said, what were you talking about guns at the beginning of your presentation for? I said, young lady, I have no idea what you're talking about. She said, well, I know what a 45 is. My dad has one of those. He keeps it under his pillow. He said, so I'm assuming a 33 is like a smaller gun? I said, no, ma'am, I was talking about records. She said, records like world records, American records? She had no idea what a record was. That's when I realized the reason I went from a fro to a glow is because it kept coming in white. And I needed to shave it off because I had no idea what she was talking about when she asked me those questions. Now, the work that I do, though, is really about making a difference. And this is not what I do, it's who I am. So this topic that we're going to touch on today is very personal in a number of ways, which I'm going to share with you. You heard mentioned earlier that I happen to have spoken at the Houston HR chapter. I've spoken at numerous of them all around the country. I also do this work for multiple industries. There's not an oil and gas company in this town I haven't done work for in some capacity. I put over 25 countries under my belt doing this work. I will tell you I'm not proud of it, but I've eaten cat, dog, monkey, whatever they serve, you just eat and don't ask. And in case you want to know, monkey does not taste like chicken. Monkey tastes like monkey. That's all I can tell you, okay? And you will not ask for a second helping when you know that's what This is a topic, though, that touches many different silos. Recently, it's even come up in the NFL. That a few months back, there was an issue with a Miami Dolphins player that was being bullied by one of his teammates in the locker room, and it exploded in the media. And some of the conversations that came out of it were really disheartening around how people think you should or shouldn't respond when you are or aren't being bullied in the workplace. How big a problem is it? Well, let me be very blunt. If you're not experiencing it, look to your left and look to your right, because one of them is. That's how prevalent this behavior is. And before I go any further, let me just share one touch point with you. If you hear nothing else I say in this hour, please hear this. If you happen to be going through bullying in the workplace, let me share one touch point with you. You have done nothing to deserve it. Please hear that if you hear nothing else I say during this hour. If you happen to be the one going through it, don't think you have done anything to deserve being bullied. Now, I will clarify. There's a difference between being a target, which the bully can target you, and being a victim. Only you allow yourself to become a victim. And my intent today is to put some light on this topic, to share with you what's being done around this work, because bullying is not just a schoolyard phenomenon. It is happening at epidemic levels in organizations today. Statistics: 37% minimally of people in the workplace report having been bullied. 72% of the people doing the bullying are bosses bullying the people who report to them. 57% of those being bullied are women. Bullying happens 4 times more often than illegal harassment. It is at epidemic levels. 62% of people hear it, see it, know what's going on, but figure since they're not talking to me, I'm walking away and not getting involved. 45% of those being targeted report having stress and health-related problems connected to being bullied. 40% of those being bullied never say anything to anyone. And 3%, only 3, file lawsuits. There's a reason for that. Let me put a quick additional point in here that isn't in my deck. At 6'4", 270 pounds, I have been bullied. In another life, I used to work in radio and television. And I worked for a woman that we called her the Black Widow, because we were convinced she ate her young. And I can tell you right now, it was the worst experience I have ever had in my life, was getting up every day and going into that job, knowing that this woman was going to put a bit in my mouth and ride me like a rented mule every day. Now, for those of you all who are city folks and wonder what did I just say, when you go get a rental car, a speed bump in a parking lot in a rental car is not a reason to slow down. A speed bump in a rental car is a chance to go airborne and see what this feels like. But in your car, you go very slowly across those bumps. She treated me like that rental car every single day, and I can tell you now, it literally caused me to be nauseous going into the office every single day. How much is this happening? While the studies say 37%, in our studies, we have seen it even more prevalent than that. The studies that say 37% is when they were using the term bullying. When we talked about derailing behaviors, of which we didn't use the word bullying, the prevalence of these behaviors went up to almost 90% of people in the workplace in the most recent study. This, again, is happening at epidemic levels. Examples of derailing behaviors are things such as this: people not being told what's expected of them and then chastised for failing to perform, patronized to appease them, ignored to belittle them, being left out of the loop on important information intentionally to hurt their performance. All of these are examples of bullying. And unfortunately, again, it is happening at epidemic levels. Let me also clarify, not all negative behavior is bullying. Bullies are specifically going to do the following 3 things that cross the threshold. 1, anybody can have a bad day. And having a bad day doesn't make you a bully. But when the behaviors are deliberate, when the behaviors are disrespectful, and when they are repeated and personal, that's when it crosses a line. I'm often asked, how do you know if it's deliberate? If the behavior that the bully is engaging in would change if their boss was in the room, then you know it's intentional. And unfortunately, again, these are the kinds of bullies that I'm referring to. One is called the constant critic. And this is the person that there's nothing you can do right. Everything you do, they find fault with. The way you look, the way you speak, the work you've done, the language you use. I worked for one of these who actually told me early in my professional career, the reason I wasn't getting promoted is because you're too articulate. You need to dumb down when you talk. And I decided that wasn't a place for me to work, and a week later I left, and I wasn't out of work but a day before I was hired somewhere else. My point is, often the people that are constant critics are the ones that are riding you every day. Let me clarify something as well. Unlike the schoolyard bully, they don't pick on weaklings. The majority of managers who pick on someone to bully, they're picking on their top performers. They're picking on the people who they feel threatened by. So their intent when they are bullying you is to try to find a way to create an opportunity for others to see that you're not as good as they know you are because they're fearful for their job. Another is the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper has a tendency to assume you're stealing. So what they think you're stealing is time. And they watch over every second of the day. Your 15-minute break that goes to 16 minutes, they're standing there at the door going, where have you been? I stopped at the ladies' room on the way back to my desk. Really? What were you doing in there? Well, if you want to know that bad, why don't you come along with me and watch? Okay? But they don't say anything to you when you come in 30 minutes early. They don't say anything to you when you work through your lunch. They don't say anything to you when you stay late. It's only when they think you're stealing and they now want to ride you every second of the day about that. The next is the two-headed snake. Many of us know who they are. These are those backstabbers. That they will say one thing to you and something different to someone else, and normally they are smiling in your face and cutting your throat behind your back. And they're the same ones who are now in every attempt that they can taking credit for your work and telling others when you do the work that they did the work, and never giving you the accolades for what it is you have done. Every chance they get, they have a knife in hand. The next is called the screamer. And this is who most people assume is a bully, is that one that's yelling all the time. I did a workshop just last week in Louisiana for an organization, and when I brought this particular bully up, everyone in the room turned and looked right at one person. So you, like I, assume the same thing. It's like, oh, this ought to get interesting. And I kid you not, he realized everybody was looking at him, and he said, oh, that's right, I'm the screamer, but let me tell you something. I don't get high blood pressure, I give it. Dude, you say that like that's something to be proud of? We need to have a little conversation after this meeting, because that is not a badge of pride to wear. But these are just some of the examples. Another is the snoop. This is the person who thinks their job is to watch you work. And they spend every second they can from around the corner trying to figure out what are you doing. So let me make sure I understood. They hired you to watch me work. I want one of those jobs. Because you should have something that you're getting paid to do other than to watch me work. So what were you doing over Joe's desk for 22 minutes? How would you know I was at Joe's desk for 22 minutes? Well, I was keeping an eye on you. It's one thing to ask me what was I doing at his desk. But if you knew I was there 22 minutes, guess what you spent 22 minutes doing? The next bully is the ringmaster. These are people who want you to jump through hoops. And every time you jump through the hoop, they raise it up a little higher, tell you to jump again because they figure you got lucky when you made it the first time. And they consistently raise the bar to see, can you do it again, can you do it again? And every time you do it, they don't assume it's because you're qualified to do the job, you just got lucky. The next is the manipulator, and it is just what it sounds like. They pull strings every chance, every day, every way they can. They utilize guilt, anything else they can to try to make you feel badly. You mean you got to go to your daughter's game, your son's performance? Don't they have other games? Aren't there going to be other performances? We need to get this report out. We need to get this training session in. We need to get this proposal done. Everybody else is leaned in, giving their full. You're going home at 6? Well, yes, I'm going to see my son or my daughter's performance. Really disappointed in that. Really, you do what you got to do, but I'm really disappointed in that. Well, just be disappointed. Because I work to pay my bills. This isn't my life. This is how I live my life. Which, on a quick side note, having put as many countries under my belt, one of my personal pet peeves is here in the U.S., we judge people by the job they have. Don't think you do it? Where do you go to a social function? As soon as someone tells you their name, the very next thing we ask is, what do you do for a living? Where do you work? Because we're going to decide how we're going to now categorize you based on that response. I have a neighbor, I love him to death. You ask Don what he does, his answer is always the same thing. I'm a janitor. And I watch people go, oh, and move on to the next person. Well, what he doesn't tell you is he owns a janitorial company that he started, that he's president and CEO of. They have offices in 12 states. They have the contracts on multiple facilities, including the Toyota Center, including the Miami Airlines Arena where the Heat play. Mickey Arison, the owner of the Heat, has given him 3 NBA championship rings from each time the Heat have won. I don't mean imitations, I mean the actual diamond rocked up ring with his name on it. He's got an NFL championship ring from the place the Ravens play. The owners of the Ravens gave him a championship ring. But he says when you ask him, I am a janitor. Because he knows people are going to size you up and judge you by what we do. We all do it, but that doesn't make it right. The next is the economic bully. These are the people who threaten your job, who will say to you, you know, we might have some layoffs coming up and you'd hate to get caught in the middle of those layoffs. You've been given 120%, but I need 150%. I'm going to need you to give me a little bit more if you're going to expect to make it through the next round of layoffs. The last one is one I've gotten in a lot of trouble for. Let me clarify. If this image looks like anybody in this room, I had no way of knowing that you were going to be here, okay? Because I've gotten scathing emails from some people who say, you intended for that to look like me. You were talking about me. I'm not joking. The queen bee. The queen bee is normally someone, woman specifically, who bullies other women. Who makes comments like, you expect me to mentor and coach women on growing their career? Nobody mentored or coached me. I got here on my own. Let them do the same. Nobody gets anywhere on their own. You may not know it, but somebody's always wearing your t-shirt in the boardroom. The question is who's wearing it, and even more importantly, what does it say? Because your ability or inability to climb that ladder is predicated on somebody in that room having your back or stabbing you in it, one of the two. People who go through weddings suffer all types of disorders. The one I'll give you illustratively that's powerful. A lady in the oil and gas company, multiple PhD, absolutely brilliant, pulled me aside after a workshop, heard the different kinds of bullies, and she said, my boss is all of those rolled in one. She said, every day I come in at 6 in the morning, I leave at 7 in the evening to do above and beyond what's required to keep my boss from even coming to my desk. She said, but every day, once a day, he finds a reason to come to my desk. I hear his voice coming down the hall, speaking to people on his way to my desk. Every day, once a day, I pull my garbage can out from under my desk and throw up into my garbage can. Tell me that's not a physical reaction to this issue of being bullied, and I will tell you now, she is not alone. She is one of many who I have talked to, that this issue is prevalent, it is pervasive, and it is real. Not only that, but it's fiscally impactful. In one of the more recent studies we did in an organization, 77% of their employees said they had experienced these behaviors. This organization had a little over 16,000 people. Let me give you a very high-level snapshot of the fiscal impact. In this organization, we asked if you've experienced the behaviors. If you said no, it jumped over questions. If it said yes, the next subset said, have you lost productive time at work, worrying about or avoiding the person? Remember I mentioned I worked for a bully. If my office was here and hers was here, and the conference room was on the other side, and you sent me a memo saying meeting in the conference room, I'm walking all the way around the building to get to that conference room. Because I'm not walking past her door. If I walk past her door, I just put a target on me. And she's yelling and screaming and finding any excuse she can to light me up. How much time am I wasting walking around the building like that? Not to mention knowing I've got a conversation with her coming up and I'm sitting at my desk and have 30 minutes worth of work to do and it's taking me an hour to do it. Because after 2 minutes to do it, I'm sitting there thinking, what's she going to say when she reads this? What am I going to have to do to respond to this? I know no matter how I word this, I got 3 copies of it I'm going to walk in there with. She's not going to like any one of them. But if I went in with 1 copy, she'd come back with exactly what I have on the second one in my hand and say, this is how I want it to be worded. But if I worded it that way, which I happen to have in my pocket, she'd have said, that's not what I want. I can tell from the nonverbals in here, some of you work for that same boss I used to have. The context of time being lost is equated in this manner. Average was 30 minutes a day, 3 days out of a given work week, over a 3-week window, which means 4.5 hours of lost productivity per incident. Times 16,000 people, which is 77% of the total 21,000 employees, is 72,000 hours of lost productivity. We used an average salary figure just for the purposes of benchmarking this number of $40,000, divided that by 264 days, which is 22 days in a month times 12 months, comes up at $151 a day relative to the cost factor. Now we took that total number of 72,000 hours, divided by 8, came up with 9,000 days of lost productivity. Multiplied that times $151 a day, that's $1.4 million rounded up in lost productivity. The average number of incidents observed per the individuals going through this was an average of 4 per year. Times that 4 is $5.5 million in lost productivity. Now when organizations say, we're in a position we can't hire, we don't have any money to buy, we can't get this, you have the money. It's sitting right here on the table. The question is, do you care enough to stop these behaviors from going on to recapture some of these dollars? This is one of about 14 figures in a financial model that we've developed to particularly illustrate to leaders who have to make the decision to change the culture that this is worth their time. Because when you simply say 77% of people experience it, they go, wow, that's pretty bad. But when you say, and you're losing 8, 10, 20, $100 million in productivity now, you have their attention. So our effort has been putting dollars and cents to this topic. Just a quick differentiator, corporate bullying versus workplace bullying. Corporate bullying talks about the organizational culture that allows this to go on. The workplace bullying is what's happening when people are specifically being targeted at an individual level. Why do people bully in the workplace? Pretty simple, because they can. The environment allows them to do it, and nobody calls them on the behavior. We have a lot of things that cause us to create these derailing behaviors in our workplaces. Some of them are basically rooted at a conscious and unconscious level. Some of it's based on how we were reared. Some of it's connected to our perceptions. And the way we were reared, by whom and where, has a direct bearing on do I value or not value the differences you bring to the organization. Often if I don't value that difference, then I will treat you in a way that's disrespectful because I don't see it as having value. Example, if I'm stepping on any toes, it's not intentional, but we have a lot of oil and gas companies in this town, many of them full of engineers. Those that graduated from Texas A&M with an engineering degree have a tendency to look down their nose at anybody else that got an engineering degree from anywhere else. Because in their eyes, if you didn't get your engineering degree at Texas A&M, you got a diploma, you didn't get a degree. So as a result, when I'm now assigning stretch assignments, developmental opportunities, I tend to lean towards those who got a degree from someplace uncomfortable. I also know in the education environment, having a degree isn't the only thing, it's where you got it from that dictate do they or don't they value. Some of us in this room know that when you go to an HBCU, there are many organizations who don't value that degree because they assume that the education you're getting isn't the same quality. When coming from a family, in my instance, it's 4 generations of graduates from Florida A&M in particular. My son graduated from Florida A&M. My brother graduated from FAMU. My mother and my father graduated from FAMU. My grandmother graduated from there when it was FAMC before it became FAMU. I know the value of 1, education, and 2, in some instances, there was no choice where you went to get that education. And now that there is a choice, what you gain from those socio environments on campus that you don't get in the exclusive environments of some of the other schools, develop the kind of teamwork and camaraderie that you need when you get in the workplace. So a degree is more than just a shingle to hang on your wall, although some people tend to have a bias around where you got it. Perceptions. Our perceptions can be partially correct, they can actually be wrong. When you look at this, it appears as though those horizontal parallel lines slope in one way or another, but they're the exact same distance apart, every single line, all the way across the page. But our perceptions can be wrong. We can also see and not see things at the same time. By show of hands, how many of you see a face in that picture in black and white? By show of hands, how many of you see the word liar? I see about half the hands that went up. For those of you that don't, L-I-A-R. Same thing, it's just a question of what you perceive when you look at something. When I look at you as a member of my team, I may see high potential. Someone else may see, they remind me of somebody I don't like, they don't have any potential. And the way you get treated is connected to that. Some of the stuff that we have in our perceptual filter is partial information. I've heard men, especially in the oil and gas business, say women can't manage men. That's because there's so few women in those environments, they've never seen it before. So to them, that's their reality. I've heard others say that, oh, well, that one's true, let's go to the next one. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I've had people say managers aren't people-oriented. That's not the case. Most managers are very people-oriented. I qualify that with most, okay? Some will say that if you're insecure, but if you're quiet, rather, it means you're insecure. I know some that is the exact opposite. The reason they're quiet is because they're infinitely secure. I don't have to prove anything to you. I know what I'm capable of doing, and therefore don't have to say or do anything but my job. All of these are the kinds of things that are partial information we carry in our filters that has a bearing on how we interact with people. Now, I'm going to give you an illustration of this. I'm going to give you the first half of an old advertising slogan. I'm going to tell you the first half. I want you to tell me the second half out loud as quickly as you know it. Matter of fact, from looking at this room, I'm going to give you two. Let me give you the first one, not on the slide there. First half I'll share, you tell me the second half. How about this? Winston tastes good. Good group, I'm impressed, okay? Now, you know what's interesting is watching some of the folks in the room go, I have no idea what they are. Now, the reason I bring that one up in particular is that that one is one initially that there is a younger generation in the room that goes, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, okay? Now, for those of you all who had no idea for that first one, as a young folk would say, I'm going to get all up in your grill with this one, because I'm not sure we call this. Here's the first half of another one. Tell me the second half out loud. 2 all beef patties, special sauce. Boom, okay, good, I'm impressed. Absolutely. Now, why am I asking this? The last time McDonald's used that was in 1970. Now, before you all start picking on people around you, for those of you that do Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, let's just say it's been longer than 1970. Okay? Now, why do I bring that up? Well, let me play this for you so you'll get an idea of what I mean. Okay, I can see I'm going to have to start this one.
Ground beef and special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on sesame seed. It's a break today at McDonald's, where your dollar gets a break.
Now, I don't know if you heard of it at the end, one of the lady goes, far out. If that doesn't age it for you, I don't know. Okay. Now, why is that important? Because if those commercials stuck around that long, how about this? Many of us have a family gathering. All of us have an Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe is the guy at the family gathering that you don't want anywhere near your kids. And it's not that he's going to hurt them. It's the stuff that Uncle Joe says that gets stuck in their little mental tape. And you're riding home from the gathering, and my family is like this. In the back seat, one of them goes, get off my side of the truck. I'm not on your side. Yes, you are. You're touching my seatbelt. Well, how can you see? You got 4 eyes. Well, yeah, you're boom when Uncle Joe's words pop out. My wife measures me and goes, he's your uncle. You fix this. Like, guys, where'd you get that word from? Like, I didn't know already. Uncle Joe? Well, what else did Uncle Joe say? Well, Daddy, Uncle Joe said, you're a boom. Another word pops out. It's like, that was a dumb question. Let me pull over. Guys, just because Uncle Joe says it doesn't mean you can say it. And if you say it at school, you're going to get suspended. If you say it at church, we're going to have to find a new church home. But whenever Uncle Joe said leave back there with Uncle Joe, what's my point with this? Another one example I want to share. Most of us have a buddy we grew up with, but a buddy we've outgrown. And you run into this person, haven't seen them in ages, and in a matter of seconds, you're thinking, how can I get away? Because I don't want anybody to walk up and think, I still think like this. I got one of those at home, that when I would go home to see my great aunt, she'd always want to send me down to the corner store for something. I say, Auntie, can I go to the grocery store and get it? She said, baby, if I wanted it from the grocery store, I'd tell you to go to the grocery store. I said, go down there to the green store and get me what I asked you. Yes, ma'am, I go. Standing on the corner, same guy, been there 25 years, brown paper bag in his hand, holding up the light pole. Been there for generations. He sees me coming down the street and immediately goes into the, hey, where you been? Haven't seen you in a long time. Let me tell you all the dirt's been going on since you left. Dude, I don't want to hear the dirt. I just came to give him my auntie came, told me I had to come get it. My way of getting away from my buddy is to say, look, I'd really love to have a little more conversation with you, but I got a big eye exam in the morning I need to go home and study for. So maybe we can connect tomorrow. Same thing he always says. You always wear the brainiac, man. You go study. I know you're going to pass that eye exam. I'm going to do my best. I'll look to see you next time I come home. Now here's my point. You may leave Buddy, and you may wish you could leave Uncle Joe, but Uncle Joe and Buddy never leave you. They sit right there just like Winston tastes good. Just like to all, beef patty special, sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a... I knew y'all knew the rest of that one. My point, you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off on the road, and some Uncle Joe's word starts bouncing off your windshield, and you go, oh, that was ugly. I swore I wasn't going to say that anymore. Someone comes into the workplace, and you have a comment that you share with someone that you know you shouldn't have in the first place, but once it comes across your lips, you realize, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. We all have those bags we still carry, and they manifest in ways that cause us to also bully people. And the impact of those behaviors is quantifiable, measurable, and absolutely makes a difference. I'm going to share with you that all of these can impact people, but I could tell you 20 different ways. The one thing I can assure you is if you give me 5 minutes that you lean into an activity, you'll forget everything I've said in a matter of days, sometimes hours. But the next 5 minutes you'll remember weeks or months from now. Nobody's going to have to go anywhere, do anything embarrassing. All I'm going to ask you to do is have a brief conversation with a coworker. For the purposes of illustration, what I'm going to do is to have two of you that are sitting close to each other partner up. I'm going to assume, sorry to pick on you, but you two are going to partner up just because you're sitting next to each other. I'm going to make you speaker one, you're listener one. As speaker one, I want you to tell her your name, current role, current responsibility, and a current project that you're involved with that you're proud of and why. As listener one, while he's talking in the first segment, make eye contact, smile, nod. You're very interested in what he has to say. When you finish segment one, say segment two out loud so she knows you're switching. Segment two, I want you to tell her previous role, previous responsibility, previous project. Only in segment two, your behaviors change. No more eye contact, look through your materials, check through your phone. Don't leave, but make it real obvious you're not paying him any attention, okay? Then I want you two to switch roles. You're speaker two, you're listener two. Speaker two, same thing, tell him your current role, current responsibilities, current project. As listener two, in segment one, eye contact, smile, nod, very interested. Say segment two out loud when you switch. Tell him your previous role, previous responsibilities, previous project that you're proud of. Now you get to pay her back. Go through your iPad, check in your wallet for something, yawn, anything you want, don't even look at her. Let her know you can care less what she's saying. Now, everybody clear firstly on what I'm looking for you to do? You can nod the head so I can make sure, all right? Now, I also know that you're assuming what most do, which is, I don't get it. We know what they're going to do. What's the point? Humor me, if you would. I can assure you, not only will this activity have an impact on what you do when you leave here today, but it will have an impact on what you do when you go home today. Everybody clear on the activity? If there's an odd person in the room, as in even odd, not strange, look around the room, there may be someone else that's not partnered, start talking and I'll pull you up out of your conversation with them. to share real quickly with you. I did an event that Magic Johnson's company was a sponsor of, and it was a breakfast gathering, 1,500, 1,800 people in the room. Magic's on the dais with us while people are eating, and then we began the session. He walked up, there was a lady sitting there with a glass and a fork and a knife, put it up on the microphone and was hitting it to try to get people to quiet down. Nobody paid her any mind at all. Magic said, I got this. He walked over to the mic and he went, shh. 1,500 people got quiet. I said, dude, that only works because you're Magic Johnson. You know? He said, no, all of us have been shushed most of our life. And watch and see, when you're in a meeting, you can't get people to stop talking, try it and see how quickly the room gets quiet. I'm always amazed that it does. Now let me debrief the activity real quickly. Before I even share with you the purpose, I just want to share a quick observation. One or two of you did those segment 2 behaviors a little too well. I'm just telling you, there's some of y'all in this room that have put people on channel ignore many, many times. And it was real easy to tune somebody out. It was like, I ain't gonna call you out. Oh boy. Now here's what I'm gonna do. First thing I want to ask. Tell me what happened in segment 1 when someone was paying, we'll get to segment 2, but in segment 1 when someone was paying attention to you and listening, use feeling words. Tell me what just took place. Yeah?
Respect.
Good one. Anyone else? Proud. Okay.
Value.
Value. Good one.
I was able to see elephant.
Well put. It was easy to go into detail and elaborate. Ma'am? I saw a hand up. No?
That was very
Good one. Very good one. Tell me about detail, enthusiasm, anything of that sort. Yes.
I felt encouraged to tell them more and more and more about it.
Absolutely. Now here's where I'm going. Segment 2, when you were being ignored. Use feeling words and tell me what it felt like. Hurt. Good one. Anyone else? Disrespected. I thought I saw a hand here as well. Tell me what it felt like. Disrespected. Tell me about, go ahead. Anger. Ooh, good one, man.
I didn't feel like engaging anymore. I just said I did stuff.
Yeah, just shut down. She said, I don't feel like engaging anymore. I said, I did stuff. You don't care. Tell me about enthusiasm, detail, anything of that sort. Train of thought. Oh, wait. Now, that's a whole other workshop. He said, I'll get her on her arm to get her attention. So we're going to call HR and keep doing that. I heard another voice or two though. Deep.
I struggled to explain what I used to do.
Wow. It's hard to even maintain your train of thought. I got to tell you, your nonverbal, when she shut you down, it was like, I'm talking here. I'm trying to talk here. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do next. Now I'm going to ask you to conduct a performance evaluation. I'm going to rate your delivery. If 1 is poor and 5 is outstanding, if we're talking about segment 1, where they were listening and paying attention to you, call out a number between 1 and 5. How'd you do? Let me hear some numbers. Who said 6? Okay. Segment 2, when you were being ignored, call out numbers between 1 and 5. 1. A lot of ones. How about this though? Take a look. The difference between segment 1 and segment 2, almost identical. Current role, current responsibility, current project, previous role, previous responsibility, previous project. The only thing that changed is how you were being received. And in most organizations, what do they tell you to do with the ones in the organization? Get them hired by somebody else right away. But what you found is you went from being someone who should be fired today to someone who should be promoted tomorrow. And the only thing is changing was the way they received you. And if you think about it for a second, 1, you knew it was coming. 2, you only went through it for a matter of minutes. And you work with people who have been through this for days, weeks, or months. Ma'am, I saw your hand. You were going to share a thought?
Well, the thing that surprised me, I knew the assignment, and I was not to listen in the second section, and I was to not pay attention, but I attempted to listen because I wanted to know what was his previous role. But I caught myself not remembering nearly as well.
Wow. Even though you were trying to. Very well put. Now here's where I'm going with this. 2 things I want to share. 1, these behaviors are resonant in our workplace. This is not what I do. This is who I am. Guys, I'm going to start with you. If there is a significant other in your life who's getting segment 2 behaviors from you, but segment 1 from someone else, don't leave town too often. don't think y'all getting off the hook. If there's a significant other in your life, and they're getting segment 1 from someone else, but segment 2 from you, you wonder why there's problems. Now I'm going to walk in our houses. Our sons, if they're getting segment 2 from us, but their buddies down the street are giving them segment 1, you wonder why they're listening to the buddies and not to us. And I'm going to come back to the men. Our daughters see their future through our eyes, not their moms. And when we show our daughters segment 2 behaviors, when that knucklehead down the street is showing them segment 1, you wonder why our baby girls listen to the knucklehead. These behaviors are real, they're resonant, and I was guilty of it. I'd be sitting at my home computer going, hey buddy, how was your day at school today? Well, what did I just tell my son? It don't matter. What I'm doing is more important than what you have to say, or I'm getting up in your grill next. Because what do you think's happening when you sit in your office and you go, yeah, what do you want? I get multitasking. I got 2 monitors, 2 video cards, about 30 gigs of RAM, and 80 programs open at any given time. I get multitasking. But you're not multitasking. You're telling that person what I'm doing is more important than anything you have to say. And the end result is, my son's conversation went from 3 minutes to 3 words. It's okay. And I realized once I was doing this, I was putting a wedge between he and I. My 24-year-old son is now in seminary school up in Fort Worth. Every day I talk to him, I ask him the same question. Any of you here that have a little one that you go to pick up, and at the end of the day they get in the car and you say, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing. Did you miss me? Yeah. But baby. Anything you want to talk about? No. Can we go to McDonald's? Whether it's a child or a grandchild, you want to get more conversation out of them? Try this the next time you pick them up. They get in the car and you say, tell me the best part of your day today. What you're going to hear from them are the things they enjoy doing that you have a chance to do with them. As a manager, ask your people what was the best part of your day today. What you'll find is what they enjoy, that they need to be given a chance to do more of, but here's where the heartbreak comes. Ask that same little one when they get in the car next, tell me the worst part of your day today. What you're often going to hear are things that adults have said to them that have crushed their little spirit. And if you don't ask that question, they're not going to answer when you say, what did you do today? But be prepared to handle it. At a workplace, when you ask your people, what was the worst part of your day today? Normally it's a system or process issue that as a manager you can do something about. And when you fix and remove that, it's quick to now their day changes. Let me keep moving, the clock is running fast. There are barriers and blind spots we all have that are connected to the behaviors and drive the feelings you all went through today, and it affects performance in quantifiable, measurable, and fiscally impactful ways every single day. But we have to work to remove blind spots. Let me give you a quick example. Clock is really running on me. Here's the illustration. You pull up to a traffic light. There's 2 young people in the car listening to music. It's blaring. Police officer pulls up next to him. The community has a noise ordinance in place. When the police car pulls up, the 2 young people turn the music down. Light turns green and they pull off. Officers come up behind them, flip the lights on, pull them over. 2 officers walk up to each side of the vehicle. Say, you obviously know there was a noise ordinance in this particular community because you turned your music down when we pulled up. I'm going to give you a pass today, but we don't forget. If we hear that music again and you're in this vehicle, we're going to pull you over, write you a citation, you have a fine you'll have to pay. Go on your way. Let me rewind. We all have unconscious biases. How many of you heard the music they were listening to in that car as jazz music? How many of you saw the 2 people driving that car as 2 young ladies? How many of you saw the 2 police officers that came up as 2 women officers? We all have unconscious biases that manifest every day in every way imaginable, and those biases cause us to treat people in a way that causes them to feel devalued and disrespected, and the end result, we end up treating people in a way that is unfortunately crossing the line to bullying. Very quickly, there is not a single state in the U.S. that has a law against bullying. There have been 21 states that have attempted to pass laws. They have been defeated every time. Because the corporate lawyers do not want the laws to pass because they know how rapid the behaviors are, and the only context you can sue under is if you're in a protected category. You can sue under the context of harassment if it crosses that threshold. I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on Saturday. But just sharing with you that this is an issue being fought in many states. Those are called HWBs, or Healthy Workplace Bills. They have been proposed in Texas and defeated. I encourage you, as you hear them in the future, to get involved and let your elected officials know that it's important to stop these behaviors. Why is it important? Because the impact of this is significant, and in organizations, keep in mind 70+% of the people doing the bullying are managers. So clearly there's an obligation organizationally to do things to prevent this from occurring. How does it happen? When you have an organization that doesn't provide recognition, satisfying career paths, lack of job security, the organization's going through change, little to no satisfaction in your job, these are things that cause the issue of bullying to become more prevalent in organizations. When the organizational culture is that whack-a-mole culture, if you would, you know, like the old arcade game where if you rear your head with an idea or a suggestion, they take the mallet and smack you back down because we really don't care what you think, we just want you to go back to your desk and do your job. As a result, people tend now to not speak up, and they also don't speak up when they hear and see these behaviors going on. Other characteristics of a bully-prone organization, when it's all about make the numbers, whatever those numbers are, and they don't care how you get there short of breaking the law. But now you have an organization that fear is the dominant behavior in the workplace, bullying has a tendency to rear its head. When speaking up means taking a risk, bullying can take a strong root in the organization because people won't take the risk and say what they just heard and saw because they don't want to now have someone target them. It means they can lose face, make enemies. In many instances, they end up losing opportunities because the bullies, again, are bosses who will withhold those from people who are letting those know what's going on. From the context of who is being targeted, it is not like the schoolyard situation. The people being targeted most often come from every background imaginable, more women than men. Men bully women more than other men. Women bully other women more than they bully men. So women are catching it from both sides. Additionally, non-aggressive types in the workplace tend to be the ones that are also getting bullied. Those that don't join the cliques and the groups in the organization, they just come in and get their work done, tend to get bullied more. The context of this is knowing that normally when you are getting bullied, the individual being bullied is a type that refuses to now hand over control in the workplace to what they do. They want to do their job and do it well. It intimidates the boss in many cases. These are people that have high expectations for authority, are sympathetic, tend to be talented, creative. Think about it. These are the people, if you're hiring people, that you want on your team. But these are the ones that the managers are often threatened by. Keep in mind again, tough management and bullying are not the same thing. Tough management normally targets performance issues, something that needs to be addressed to do your job better. Bullying makes it personal. It attacks character. I had a meeting very recently with a CEO and his leadership team in a company that had merged, that the CFO from the company that was acquired was required by the board to stay for 6 months to work through the financial transition. The CEO didn't like it because his CFO was let go. I'm in a meeting with all of them. The CFO says to everyone there, here are some concerns, here's what's happening cash flow wise, here's some things we need to do with our debt position. The CFO looks at him and says, well, John, you know, you must have difficulty being a 20-watt bulb working on a team full of 100 watts. And I thought to myself, nobody said a word. I said, okay, hold on. My tool to interrupt a conversation when someone steps on your metaphorical toes is to say, ouch, which I had taught them. I said, ouch, because no one spoke up. Everybody looked at me. I said, Joe, let me ask you a question. Aren't there, and let me just give you a quick touch point, anytime your toes have been stepped on, when you respond, always assume good intentions. Because if you assume good intentions, your response comes from a place that's much easier for them to hear than when you now respond with, well, you only said that to me because I'm, pick whatever the issue is, you see yourself through it. But when you assume good intentions, Joe, I'm sure you probably meant well when you said that. However, let me tell you how that landed for me when I heard it. I'm getting tapped under the table. I'm sorry, but after the third tap on the foot, I turned to the guy and said, well, why are you tapping my foot? Now he's looking at me like, oh, you called me out. If it's that important, you tap me 3 times, say what you got to say. Well, we normally don't talk to the CEO like that at this meeting. I said, well, first of all, he's a CEO, he's not my dad. Number 2, I've been paid already. Before I showed up, my check has cleared the bank, and I have a ticket in my pocket to fly home that you can't cancel. My job is to tell you who the ugly kids in the room are, and guess who the ugliest kid in the room is right now? That's not an acceptable conversation among adults, and especially from someone who's in a position of authority, because you're telling everybody else it's okay for them to do it on their teams. The CEO looked at me and he said, nobody has talked to me like that in a long time. I said, and your point is? Honestly, I don't concur. That's why I'm a consultant. He said, I appreciate it, because I didn't realize the impact of what I said. Sometimes things come to mouth before my brain catches up with them. I said, well, one, I'm appreciative that you took it the way you did, because you could have asked me to leave, but he probably hadn't read the fine print. There was a cancellation clause in the contract, so he had to write me another check. But he took it well because he realized it was what needed to be said. The secret to knowing if you've got inappropriate fear in the workplace normally tells you that bullying has become a prevalent part of the culture. The way you start fixing this organizationally, one, organizations are creating what are called respectful workplace policies, because you would think these behaviors are already things in your policy statements, but normally they are not. Setting up a bully-free workplace means there also has to be training, because what you consider to be respect and what someone else considers to be respect might be two completely different things. And you need to talk through and define what does this look like so everybody's on the same page, because the normal response when people are called out on this is, I didn't know that was being disrespectful. And in some cases they truly may not, because people come from so many cultural backgrounds that something that is disrespectful to one person might just be standard operating procedure to someone else. But that doesn't mean that it's acceptable. First step is to ensure, from your perspective of training and development in the education department, that these become topics in conversations that you have in your workshops. Secondly, that you have policy statements that reinforce what this is and is not, what can and cannot be done, so people have recourse as to what to do when they run into these behaviors. And three, provide help for those people who are going through it, because in this room, there are multiple people right now being bullied in the workplace. Mistakes many organizations make. One, assume that there are people who are untouchable because of their position or title. No one is untouchable. Another is that they blame the victim and just say, as we call it here in Texas, cowboy up or man up and deal with it. Well, that's easy to say when it's someone else going through it. But when the bullseye on you, it's not so easy to say cowboy up, man up, and deal with it. Realize that there's bullies at every level, including at the senior leadership level. Recognize that in most cases, bullies won't stop just because you hope they will. Supervisors and managers, one, never assume that just because it's not visible, that's not happening on your team. Pay attention when conversations are taking place. Doesn't mean going on a witch hunt. Don't blame the victim when somebody comes forward and says there's a problem. Deal with the problem. Bullying is not simply tough management. Know that it's inappropriate behaviors. Bullies, in the context of this, the trend needs to be stopped as soon as it's noticed. As soon as you sense someone is heading down that path, say ouch, stop the conversation, and let's talk about what it is. Again, assuming good intentions that I just saw. That's not going to happen any longer. One of the things that I will tell you as well is that people, if you're a bully in this room, even a mild bully, you can't call anybody out. Because at the end of the day, my favorite quote from Emerson is, how can I hear what you say when what you do speaks so loudly in my ears? Until you clear your lanes, don't ask anybody else to clear theirs. And sometimes the people you work with, those friends, can tell you if you are a bully. Signs to watch for: when you have staff shortages in one area, people keep leaving one department at a disproportionately high number, there's normally an issue with there being a bully boss in that department. It's not that everybody in that department is being encouraged to climb the corporate ladder. Some folks will take a step down just to get out because they don't want to continue to work for this person any longer. Recognize when people are being forced to work excessive hours, poorly defined jobs, lack of clarity around expectations. All of these create opportunities for bullying. Steps at a minimum to take: create policies that deal with this topic, define acceptable and unacceptable, and put sanctions in place that are progressive disciplinary programs that say, here's how we're going to handle it when this issue manifests itself. When somebody comes to you, take it seriously. Don't assume that they're just coming with a complaint or whining, because in essence, this behavior isn't normally just one person in that department. They're normally other people, and they're also normally your top producers that are being targeted. Find out what the behaviors are, how long it's been going on, how widespread, if people feel their safety is threatened as a result of it, because bullying can escalate to physical confrontation and physical violence in the workplace. It's unfortunate, but almost every instance in the news where you hear someone going back into their job and pulling out a weapon and shooting people up in the workplace, listen to the interviews that happen the next day and the following day when they're interviewing people. What you often find is that person was being bullied at work, had told others about it, came back targeting the bully and the coworkers who knew, but said and did nothing about it. Until there's a Newtown, and I am not hoping this happens, I pray it never does, but until there's a Newtown-like incident in the workplace where people end up getting hurt as a result of it, most of the legislative members are not going to do anything on this topic because they have substantial dollars given to them by the Corporate Association of Attorneys saying, do not vote on this issue. It's unfortunate, but that's how the game works. I just hope at some point we find courage to speak up. Because if we don't, history has already shown what collusion will do. Collusion is defined this way. When you see it, hear it, know what's happening, but say and do nothing, that's colluding. In Germany, this occurred. Reverend Niemöller said during the height of Nazi Germany, first they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Catholics and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Catholic. And then they came for the Jews and I didn't speak up because I wasn't Jewish. And then they came for me, only there was nobody left to speak up. If you don't find your voice when it's someone else, how can you expect somebody else to find theirs? Remember, addressing and preventing this issue is everyone's responsibility, not just one person's responsibility. It's not easy, but now that you know, what are you going to do when you run into bullying later today or tomorrow? Because you're going to see it again and you're going to see it soon. That bullying is a chance to define your character and reaction. When you see it, are you going to be a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? If you're a carrot goes in the boiling water of adversity hard, but it turns soft once it hits the boiling water. An egg goes into the boiling water of adversity fragile, but it turns hard very quickly because of the heat. However, the coffee bean goes into the boiling water and it changes its environment. It turns the water into coffee. The challenge is, are you going to be a carrot, egg, or coffee bean when you run into it? The last thing I will share with you, you will not get back into the office and have 10 minutes without somebody saying, did you go to that bullying thing? What was it about? Don't assume that everybody asks you cares. There's some people who think that this whole conversation is a waste of time. If I wasted an hour of your time, please accept my apology. But I hope you realize you won't have an hour to answer them. You won't have 10 minutes. Consider how you're going to answer. But consider to whom you're talking, because not everybody cares. Here's the last thought I'll leave you with. There were 2 pilots who had flown relief missions into the jungle. They just dropped off their supplies. The plane is now getting ready to head back out and go into town to get more. As the plane clears the treetops, the young co-pilot hears a noise in the cockpit. He turns to the captain and he says, sir, somehow as the ground crew emptied the plane out, a snake got on board. We need to turn the plane around and get him on here to get the snake out. The captain didn't say a word. He pushed forward on the throttle, hits 5,000 feet, and keeps climbing. As the plane is climbing, the snake starts to ease over by the captain's chair. And the young guy says, sir, maybe you didn't hear me. Sir, there's not a snake on the plane. There's a snake on the plane. Let's get this thing on the ground so the ground crew can get it out of here. Cap doesn't say a word. Throttles down. He's now at 15,000 feet. Only now the snake stops moving. The young guy unbuckles and he walks over and he kicks the snake and it's dead. But he turns to Cap and he says, Cap, that snake I've been telling you about, sir, it's dead. And I get the impression you knew it was going to die, but how could you have possibly known that? First time Cap spoke, he said, son, listen to me. I've been flying planes all my life. And the one thing I learned very early in life is that snakes can't live at high altitudes. When you get back into the workplace and you run into the snakes, push forward on the throttle, keep climbing. Remember, snakes can't live at high altitudes. Thank you for allowing me.